declaration that they will renounce Christianity. Release International supports persecuted Christians around the world. Bob Fu is RI's China partner.
For the first time, millions of Chinese children are forced to sign a form, these Christian children, to renounce their faith in public. The teachers, the children, all have to mark whether they are Christians or not. And if they admitted they are Christians, then they were asked to sign a Communist Party propaganda department form to renounce their faith. And if the parents and grandparents are not working hard or refuse to cooperate to make their children denounce their faith, then their job security would be jeopardized. We have received cases showing even grandparents would lose their public health and public welfare if they did not dissuade them from believing Christianity.
One mother who was holding a Sunday school class for her 5 children at home found herself surrounded by police and arrested after her husband betrayed her to the authorities. Release International's 2024 Persecution Trends Report reveals persecution is deepening in China. Some state-registered churches have been prevented from meeting, their pastors arrested, and their crosses torn down. Many Christians have to gather in secret to experience any freedom of worship. They risk surveillance and arrest. Release International's partners say the persecution of Christians in China is every bit as bad as the dark days of the Cultural Revolution. In the words of Bob Fu, the Communist Party has declared war against the cross. The authorities appear increasingly desperate to stop the rapid growth of Christianity in China, where some say there are now more Christians than communists.
So Andrew would say thank you for your report today. But the Chinese authorities are particularly going for the children. That seems to be the area they're going to. What happens if a child says, no, I won't?
Well, as we heard in that from Bob Fu, the authorities will then lean on their parents, they'll lean on the entire family. And that's made particularly worse in China because they have a system of social credits. So what happens is if you let the side down or if you disappoint your government, then your social worth, your benefits are actually reduced. It'll be a little bit like this if in the UK, for example, if you did something which got you into trouble with the police in the UK, just imagine that this would happen. Even before you went to court, even before you were found guilty of anything, you can have your benefits cut entirely. That's the kind of thing that's going on out there in China. And that's a very, very disturbing development.
Another disturbing development is that there is a suggestion that the church in China is not growing at the same way. We've always talked about the church in China as being a growing church, and that's excited us. But suggestion now that maybe it's plateauing out a little bit?
Well, you have to ask yourself, where does that suggestion come from? So when China itself surveys its own people, what China is looking for is a suggestion that the church is not growing as it was. The problem is, if you are a Christian in China, you know the authorities are opposed to you. They send around a survey saying, what is your faith, what is your belief? What are you going to write on that form? Are you going to spill the beans? Are you going to say everything about what you truly believe? These are official figures. And China will not allow foreign organizations in to do those surveys. So you've got it on the recommendation of the Chinese themselves. But one estimate suggests now that 7% of the Chinese population is Christian. That may not sound very much, but you know, it's an awfully big country. And that would mean that there are more Christians than members of the Communist Party there. And that worries the Communist Party because it's officially atheist and it's autocratic. It's all about controlling everything. So when you're of that frame of mind, what you can't control, you seek to suppress or eliminate. And that's what we see going on in China. So the latest World Watch list, we've been looking at that in this program, says that pressure is growing on Christians in China due to new regulations. The authorities insist that all sermons must reflect core socialist values. That's an interesting one for a pastor to work out, isn't it? Because they appoint the pastors, so they make sure that they do. Churches are having to remove crosses, not all of them, but some of them. They're having to put up communist banners and communist placards. And China, if you remember, China is leading the world in surveillance technology, which is powered by artificial intelligence. There's one surveillance camera there's two surveillance cameras for every Chinese citizen in that country, and they're exporting this technology elsewhere to other autocratic groups and governments around the world. You know, one of the biggest buyers of Chinese artificial intelligence-powered surveillance technology is Nigeria, which is an interesting development. Now, we heard from Bob Fu of China Aid earlier in that clip. Here he is being interviewed by Greg Musselman of Voice of the Martyrs Canada.
Without any exaggeration, the persecution against the Christians and other religious minorities has really reached to the worst level we have not seen in 40 years since the Cultural Revolution of Chairman Mao in 1960s. For the first time, we have seen the Communist Party is cracking down the church across the board. We literally declared a war against Christianity. Basically, for the first time, millions of Chinese children are forced to sign a form, these Christian children, to renounce their faith in public. And of course, the Communist Party has declared war against the cross. And all of a sudden, the cross was declared as the enemy of the state. Even the government-sanctioned churches had been targeted for persecution. Those pastors who refused to voluntarily destroy, remove, and demolish their cross had been facing a huge risk of persecution. The penalty even reached to imprisonment, to 12 years, 14 years imprisonment for simply refusing to take down the cross from the rooftop of the church building. Basically, every children and youth are forced to reveal their religious identity, especially for Christians. The teachers, the children, all have to mark whether they are Christians or not. And if they admitted they are Christians, then they were asked to sign a Communist Party propaganda department form to renounce their faith. And if the parents and grandparents are not working hard or refuse to cooperate to make their children denounce their faith, then their job security would be jeopardized. It has created so much tension and, of course, family trauma. And we even have received a report showing recently a Christian lady's husband reported his Christian wife's basically a Sunday school teaching session with 5 children. Then that wife was being surrounded by the multiple police, and she was arrested. And then, of course, she learned it was her husband reported about her faith. I think the Chinese Communist Party controlled China must be the first country formally entering into a digital tyranny state with the full digital surveillance from face recognition camera. I mean, among the 1.3 billion people, the data shows the Chinese government has installed over 2.5 billion face recognition cameras. Basically, every Chinese citizen is followed with by at least two digital face recognition cameras every day, 24 hours a day. And plus, they are using this big data technology. They know where you go, and they use this big data technology even to project where you are heading to on Sunday, and they can just simply show up and get you arrested. It follows you in your workplace when you purchase a subway ticket, metro ticket, or a bus ticket, or a train ticket, airline tickets. You know, many Christians are prevented from purchasing as simple as an airline ticket for being a Christian. And then you have the government-sanctioned churches. Every church pulpit and the four corners of the church has to install face recognition cameras so that they can monitor the congregation, the members, whether there's any children there's any actually youth under 18 years old, any Communist Party member, any Communist Youth League member, or any civil servant, or any police or military service member. So these are all forbidden list to even enter into the church building.